Hello and welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror movie and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 2010's Paranormal Activity 2, which was directed by Todd Williams. I'm your co-host Alec.
I'm Eric, and with us again, typically our Stephen King expert, Dom Berger. Dom, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. Always great to be here.
Yeah, Dom, have you kept track of what number we're on now? Have we reached 20?
Yeah.
I had it. I know we're north of 15, but I used to keep track of all of it, but I can't remember.
I think you had like a spreadsheet going.
I had a spreadsheet and then I was like, you know what, dude? I think you're holding on too much, but I definitely feel like I'm a frequent flyer. And this is a great movie. This wasn't a Stephen King, but I didn't watch, so I'm sure you guys did the first Paranormal Activity as a podcast.
Yeah, in 2021. So it's been a long time. It's been like 4 years.
Oh, awesome. So, I mean, when I first saw the first Paranormal Activity, it was in college. We got like a bootleg version and we all sat down in like someone's room, smoked a bunch of pot. I think we watched the end mostly. I didn't see the startup. So, Paranormal Activity kind of number two, this one like dives into the mythology and a little bit more of the lineage of the characters. So I was a little bit lost because I had only seen kind of the climax of the movie before, but I went back and I read about it, the first movie. What did you guys think before I get into my thoughts?
I've always been a fan of this franchise. I think I'm a little bit, blinded at this point. Like I've always liked it, but now I've rewatched this movie like yeah, like 10 times and it was a little boring. I don't know. Eric, what about you? When did you see this, Eric?
I had to look it up. I mean, not look it up, but I was like, did I see this in theaters? I did. I did. I went on a date and saw this in theaters. And I got to say, the theater experience for this is a way better because the sound design is key to this film. Because when it gets dark and the stuff's about to happen, it fast forwards and stuff like that, it has like this really weird bass that comes in slowly. So I think it's different than me watching it with my dog like farting every 5 seconds in the background. And I'm like, the theater experience, there's nothing that beats it. But like these movies were meant to be seen in theaters.
Yeah, but having seen it though, Eric, like that many times, like how did you feel this time watching it?
I'll be honest with you, as a 35-year-old and not a 20-year-old, I'm like, it's not scary anymore. To me, it's funny, like seeing a demon slow roll into this family. I am a big fan of like demons just doing shit, but it's just like the demon's like, you know what? First, I'm gonna make the baby's crib mobile move, and it's gonna move around in circles, and no one, and then next. I'm gonna make the pool vacuum come out of the pool. That's gonna scare them on the video camera. And then I'm gonna, play with your kid's robot. Why not? To me, I laughed. I was like, if you're a demon, like that's
Yeah.
come on. It's like silly, but it made me think like, oh yeah, when I was younger, it was scary. And the first one's the same thing. It's like, oh, I moved the sheets off the pillow. Ooh, there's some banging.
I know. But wait. So, Dom, just so I can understand this, wait, you didn't see the first one? You only saw this one?
No, no, no. So it's actually the opposite.
Oh,
I had never seen the second one. So I saw the first one and I just remember from the first one that the boyfriend was like or husband, I guess maybe he was an asshole and like really unlikable.
yeah.
And I'm watching this next one and again, I've never seen it. It's wild that you've seen it 10 times. Like, wow. I want to hear the story behind that. But when the movie starts and talking about like hitting differently, it started with that shot of the baby and I was like, fuck. And just for a little background for my viewers, like I have two kids like under 3. So I'm like, no, like something's gonna go wrong with the baby. And then they show the shot of the dog, and I'm like, no, something's gonna go wrong with the dog. And I was expecting kind of the dismissive. This series has been known for like the men who dismiss the women who are, sensitive to these experiences. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised. He was dismissive, but this husband, Daniel, he was like much more likable character. I did believe him as the father to Allie. Like I thought all the actors did a pretty good job. I didn't feel like at any point like it was just too forced, except for the demon pieces where they had to happen that way.
Mm.
But yeah, dude, this movie definitely got me in a few points that like, you know what's coming. And of course they kind of follow a formula that's similar to the first one, because of how much money it made. I'm sure there's certain people having expectations, but like, oh, I don't know. I was watching that baby get dragged for the first time and like starting to pull up the crib. And do we do like a plot synopsis or anything? Or we just talk about kind of,
No, we'll get to it. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of see what your guys' history was with this franchise.
yeah, I thought actually it moved quicker than I was expecting. They cut it up pretty good. I know the first movie, like I only joined in the first movie in the second half where everything was kind of picking up.
Plus, Dom, sorry to interrupt, but you're also under the influence, so you're probably watching this like, wait, this isn't Scooby-Doo. Like, like, like 30 minutes in, like, wait a minute. I thought we were watching Everybody Loves Raymond. What happened?
Dude, Scooby-Doo gets FUCK'd up this movie. And again, they start kind of putting in lore and there's like different pieces of these two sisters. They have like this mysterious past. And again, I was like, oh, I wish I paid more attention to the first movie because I don't know how much they go into anything in the beginning of the movie about Katie's past. Katie's one of the sisters. Katie and what is it?
Yeah, Katie and Christy.
Katie and Christy.
Yeah, I've seen the first one probably more than this one too. So I'm very well versed. In the first three, I'm very well versed.
Yeah, and again, like I didn't know what to expect. I heard that the sequels kind of go all over the place.
Yeah, they do.
I was expecting to get lost pretty easily, but this one kind of it stays pretty well in the lane. And I think the actors did a good job. I think the sound design was really good.
Hmm.
So like rewatching it, what are the things that kind of fall away?
Boring.
Like Alec just said, boring, very slow to start. I want to say one other thing. Got to give it credit for coming out like a year after Paranormal Activity 1, even though Paranormal Activity 1 was shot or released technically in 2007,
Yeah.
and it didn't get the reaction until 2009. But this came out in 2010, and I got to say, it was a very creative way to do a sequel. It's technically a prequel.
It's a prequel. It's a prequel.
Yeah, it's a prequel and it ends right after the first one. And I'm like, that's actually really creative. And I got to give him kudos. And then to run through stats real quick, because this is important before we get into the plot. This came out October 22nd, 2010. Its runtime is an hour 31. Perfect timing. Alec knows I say an hour 30. I don't want to see anything longer for horror. Its budget is 3 million and it made 177 million. Rotten Critic 57, Rotten Audience 48%. And then the first one, I want to just touch up on the first one, came out, like I said, 2009, like domestically, came out technically 2007 at Screamfest, had a $220,000 budget. Very small budget.
And didn't it make like
It made 200 million.
Jesus
So
Christ.
so it's like that's why like remember we used to do stuff and film stuff in horror. Like I always thought like if I'm gonna get into film, it has to be horror because it's the easiest way. It's the easiest way to just put money into something and just hit the home run.
This is even easier than any other horror movie though, because there's no gore, there's no monster, the only special effects are like floss on doors and stuff like that.
It's literally sound design and just a little bit of special effects. This one clearly has more, especially towards the ending with like the
Yeah.
floor vibrating in the house. But the first one is like they knew what they were doing and they were smartly using their budget to make a hit. And goddamn, that's like insane. Like, you know what I mean? Like $220,000 made into 200 million. And that's why there's like 20 of these. It's because these movies generate so much.
Well, it's starting to die. There's seven of them now.
Yes. Yeah. Now they definitely run their course, but they milked that cow and rightfully so.
Yeah. This one I think was a little bit of a step down from the first one. I think we knew the shtick, so it was kind of like, all right, they have to up the game, like you guys were saying with the dog and the baby, or like, oh, that wasn't in the first one. So there's little things, and it does build on the lore, so it's fun. But yeah, the first like hour, I was like, God damn, it's like night seven. It's like the pool thing moved again, and then it's just like, oh my God. And then the last 20 minutes is pretty good, but yeah, I don't know. I think of the first trilogy, this one I think is the weakest, but still not too bad.
It's so interesting because like I'm watching it for the first time, right? And I'm trying to piece together like what relation this has to the first one because you don't know that it's connected to the first one until Katie shows up at the door
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, they're sisters And again, at the end of the first one, Katie had been like she was missing. So I didn't know whether or not she had already murdered, like she had already done the crime and was showing up and was going to bring the demon in. So there's a lot of places that I was going because I didn't know about the plot. And truthfully, it's wild because I was trying to justify why this demon was like not making moves, like the pool thing. And it's like, and I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I couldn't remember about the necklace. So, the initial break-in, they do a good job in justifying putting the cameras up, right? So they have in the story, essentially the reason they have this found footage is because this family moves into a house, they come back one day and the entire house is ransacked except for the baby's room. And the guy gets really paranoid, so he puts in cameras and everywhere. I'm like, that's pretty smart justification. I don't know if this was in Paranormal Activity. I can't remember, but like they use the footage that they have. It's meta where they look at the footage to prove to the other characters that weren't around what had happened to them supernaturally. And I was like, oh,
Yeah. No, they do that in all of them.
it was a really like I thought they justified that well. I think that the special effects, though they were limited, like that pull down the stairs was wild.
Mm.
That could have been really weird looking. The fact that she gets up and she falls again in the same shot, it's like it's really wild how choreographed that could be. And the kid, for all the things that were happening around him, dogs barking and like the acting that was going on, that kid couldn't have been more than 4 years old. But like he did a really good job of like staying calm when he needed to stay calm. And I don't know if that was like a double or whatever, however they did it. But the kid did a great job. The dog did a great job. And then by the end, I was like, oh God, like, how are they going to justify keeping the police out of this? Right. Anyway, I don't want to go too far ahead, but like, I was looking for holes in terms of like, all right, like, obviously, the fact that this guy kind of keeps it all in house and internal. You know what surprised me the most is that he called back the housekeeper that he fired, So
Hmm.
there's a housekeeper in the beginning, and she's like very spiritual, and when these bad things start happening she's like going around the house and she's lighting sage and she's like she's trying to ward off spirits, and the dad comes home and he fires her immediately.
Which felt
Like,
weird. It felt
Yeah.
weird.
Wait,
Yeah,
why don't we go through the plot?
sure.
Yeah, so the movie does, as you were saying, Dom, starts off with their new kid is being born, Hunter. So it's a family, Christy, a father, David, the daughter, Allie, and there's a new baby, Hunter. So they're showing everything around the house, like, hey, the baby's gonna be here. Everything gets destroyed. So then they set up all of these perfectly secure security cameras in the backyard, the front of the house, all over the entire house. And then so we get to meet these characters, and then now. We meet this Martina, I think is her name, and she's the housekeeper. She doesn't really speak English, and yes, so now, sorry, Dom. So we're picking up here. There's no ghost activity at this point.
yeah, I think initially it's just like thuds. You like the sound design's really great, so you can start to hear it. As you hear it, you see the characters start to hear it, and there's banging, and she's very quick to kind of be like it's something supernatural.
Mm,
And the situation with the sister is that Christy is married to this guy Daniel, and he owns a bunch of Burger King franchises. And because you're looking at this house and it's a huge house, you're like, all right, they have money, right? And this comes back later. So they have money, and you're like, okay, so kind of makes sense that they have help and they have this big house because he owns, all these franchises. He must be making money. So he comes home with his wife to see that his housekeeper is doing all these wacky things to ward off spirits. So he fires her and she leaves. He has a daughter who's a stepdaughter to the woman. And when these supernatural things start to happen, each one of them have a different kind of reaction to it. The mother, right, Christy, she has some history with that we don't know about that with supernatural stuff, and she's really afraid of it. And the husband's dismissive, right? He's very logical. And the daughter, the stepdaughter, she says something along the lines of like she's very excited for it because her like they hint that the previous mother had passed away. So
hmm.
she says something like maybe it's mom, right? So all of a sudden, the stepdaughter is like very interested to do like a Ouija board, like the first movie, to kind of reach out to these spirits, right? So she thinks that it could possibly be her mom, and I thought that was like very interesting. I don't know how if you want to keep going beat by beat. I don't know if I'm jumping too far.
No, it's all right. Something you mentioned earlier was you were looking for plot holes, and I did notice one that specifically carries over from the first movie. So like when Katie and Micah come over right in the beginning, there's no paranormal activity going on yet. They're talking about this horror stuff. Like I mean they start talking about, "Hey, we have a ghost." And the dad is like, "Yeah, first thing you think of when something falls off the wall, ghost or whatever." They would be talking about this in the first movie. If this because this is a prequel. So the ghost shit's happening. They start talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, you two girls used to do seances." They're saying all this shit. Therefore, in the first movie, when ghost shit starts happening, Micah should start to say to Katie, "You're just saying this because of your sister. This was happening at her house, right, Eric? Am I right?"
Time out, time out. I will be fair and say Micah didn't. How do I phrase this? The sister from the first movie did say that I had an issue when I was a kid in the first movie.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the sister and the brother-in-law in this film kept all this information hidden from them, except for the pool scene and a few other things. So I think it's all happening at once, and that's the idea. But yeah, you'd think they would talk and there'd be a little bit more. But what I do like about these two movies is in the first one, Micah starts setting up cameras and she says, "Don't do that. You're going to piss off the demon." Or the priest says that, or whoever it was. And by the time the demon is transferred to this couple, the sister, in this second one, they already have cameras set up. So it's like he's already pissed off. So I like that idea too, which I wish they delved into a little bit.
But here's the other thing, though, Eric. When did they light that picture on fire in this movie? When did they start burning the picture of Katie as a little girl? She's standing in like the driveway and they lit it on fire, right? When was that?
It's after they talked, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
yeah.
So in the first movie, Dom, I'm sorry, I know you haven't seen everything from the first movie, but in the first movie, they find that picture in their attic. So that means that they were already having this pool conversation, and then the picture went up into the attic. So that means after they lit it on fire. So that means that conversation would have happened before anything at Micah and Katie's house from the first movie.
I think that's right. I think that adds up, honestly.
It's a plot hole.
It could be a little plot hole or just a miscommunication between the characters.
And well, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt because it's a found footage, so maybe they talked about it and they just didn't include that footage. But like, okay.
Yeah, that chalk it up to that.
Well, whoever is editing this all together would probably be like, "Ooh, that would be a good thing to put in this," but whatever. So then the firing of the maid was crazy. Like he said, "I've told you don't do this before." So you're like, "Well, why has she done this before? Like have you guys had ghost issues before or does she just light sage all the time?" But yeah, if that was the case, like I mean, I will say you guys have kids. If you guys had a babysitter and you walked home to this, what would you do?
Dude, and I actually had this same thought while it was happening, and I'm like, my wife would definitely tell me to like fire her for
Yeah.
sure. I don't know if I would be out on the curb throwing her luggage into like her car. Like he's so aggressive. Like she's like, "Senor, senor," da, 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 da," and he's like, "I told you," and he's throwing her luggage out onto like the street.
I don't speak Spanish. How many times do I have to say it?
But it's not like a babysitter. This feels like an in-home nanny.
She lives there. That like she had luggage.
Yeah. Like if you're burning sage, it's like, okay, that's fine, but I don't like the smell of it. Can you stop? And she keeps doing it. It's like, please stop." And to Alex's point, is how many times does she burn sage in that? I don't know. It's a bizarre scene. That was probably the worst scene of the movie, hands down,
What
Alex.
would you do though? What would you do, Dom? You were about to say. What would you do?
Oh my God, I don't know, man. I like we have people that clean our house, and if I came home and they were like burning sage, I'd be like, "Hey, listen." Like I would be such a I would be super polite about it because I'm a big pushover. But I'll tell you, like Daniel seems like he reacts really quickly. It's kind of out of character. And here's the thing that I liked about this movie is that I'm expecting night scares, right? So we're waiting for the day stuff to go by. At one point, the dad has to leave, and Allie is watching her younger brother Hunter, and she gets kind of tricked by the demon into being locked outside. All right, and she's like, the demon goes for the baby. This is why it's like it hits so hard with me. I'm always worried about where the kid is, right? So they
Hmm.
lock Allie outside. She can't get back in. The door shuts behind her. So I'm expecting all these night scares, and then they got me really good in the kitchen So like, as things are vamping up and they're seeing more and more paranormal activity, Christy's sitting in the kitchen and she's reading a magazine and it's in the middle of the day and all like a midsummer scare and all the drawers and everything open all at once and there's a huge sound cue and that scared the shit out of me. I did not know what to expect because up to that point, to your point, like they set the pace of like a pan falls down, maybe a door slams, just like the first one. And then all of a sudden, it's in the middle of daylight. You think you're safe, and boom, like all this stuff happens. And the best thing about it is she runs away, and whereas other parts of the found footage would cut back, right, or cut to another day or something, she goes back into the kitchen and is like F you demon, and she starts putting stuff away. And she like to show the demon that she's not afraid. I would
Yeah.
have left that state. I would have left the country. Like I thought, oh, this is really interesting because it happened. It doesn't cut away. It shows that she's putting the stuff away. And then she puts on a brave face because the daughter comes back home after walking the dog. And just like you said, Eric, she's like, my sister told me that if we talk about this stuff in the house, it's going to get worse. So it's fine. It's fine. And I was like, damn, I am in.
These things have been fucking with them their whole lives. So the third one is a prequel to this one, so it shows what these girls went through. So like I think she's at her wit's end with this, and she's like, I'm not letting this take over my life anymore. I mean, she doesn't have a say. But yeah, that's probably my favorite scene in the whole movie is when all of those doors just like when you're like, oh, okay, that's where the budget went. They definitely couldn't do that in the first one. But it was really good. That and the floating like babies and getting dragging people down the stairs, like all that shit was like, okay, they've kicked up the budget. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just going back to the babysitter. Like, it's not just that she was lighting sage, she was holding the baby while the sage was being lit and walking around. So I'm like, so she's like got smoke in the baby's face. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just like, that pissed me off.
Yeah, it's super, and you could tell like he was like at first he's like, Don't do that," and then when she like goes to bed or whatever, or she leaves, he's just sitting there like, "Son of a bitch!" Like I have to. I don't know how many times you guys have felt like in adult life where something really bad happens that you got to deal with, and there's a part of you that's like, "I just want to be any other person today." I want to be anywhere else. I don't
Yeah.
want to have to
Oh
fire
yeah.
my maid. I don't want to have to fight over money or whatever the thing is, parking spots or
Like, I just want to work at Burger King.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's like most of the plot of the movie. I mean, the big plot points is just when Katie and Micah come back and they all start talking about the ghost again. But otherwise, it's pretty much rinse and repeat from the first one. It's just kind of like you were saying, Eric, just like, a silverware falls and a pool thing moves and stuff and a door shuts. But then by the last like 20 minutes, the dog dies. I think that's the first thing where you're like, oh shit.
Oh, that was scary. It's like that's really messed up too, and it's like that's a demon.
Yeah, because that's not a possessed person either. Like that's actually like the being killed it. You're like, shit. By the way, the being's name is Toby. I don't think they say that until the third one either.
Toby. Hmm.
It's Toby. But yeah, so the dog dies, and that's like the first like fuck. And oh wait, and there's also the bird that hits the window and they find a bird outside. You're like, okay, I guess that could have just been a bird, or maybe it was like the demon. But then what do they find the dog body, right? The demon doesn't bury the dog. So like when did they find the dog? I don't remember that scene. I'm sure the little girl freaked out.
Well, they have a thing first where Katie and Christy talk about their childhood like briefly. And essentially they're like, you don't want to end up like mom. Like
Right.
so we find out something happened with their mom in their past.
Oh yeah.
And, all of a sudden, the more shoehorn piece is when Allie does her little research and somehow she can Google the ancestry of her stepmother's parents all the way back to the 20s and was like, kind of came to a conclusion really quickly where it's like, hey, you have a demon possession. Odds are somebody in your lineage made a deal with the demon. And this whole thing with like the firstborn son leads to wealth. So that's why I brought up wealth before. I was like, oh, you think that it's this guy who has all the wealth, but it sounds like Katie and Christy come from a wealthy family and they haven't had to pay up for the demon's deal or whatever the great grandmother's deal was to be wealthy because they've had nothing but girls the whole way.
It's close. So it's kind of like hereditary a little bit. So basically the great grandma I think makes a deal with this witch coven or whatever that when the firstborn is born, then something good happens. Like I don't know what it is, but they're not rich. Like in the prequel one takes place in the 80s. It's like a single mom. She's married to a guy a lot like Micah, and they're doing okay, but they're definitely struggling. And then the grandma is the one that's like making sure that they have kids and stuff like that so that they eventually can have a boy. Yeah, it's weird. They're not wealthy. They're not well off. You haven't seen the third one, right?
No, I haven't seen the third one.
Okay. Honestly, the third one I think is the best one. But yeah, no, it's a little confusing. I don't even think they've fully worked it out yet. But by the fourth one, they're like, okay, we're totally committed to this cult. We're totally committed to the hunter being like the firstborn lineage, and there's a big reason for it. But Eric, have you seen the third one?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Probably like 11 years ago or 12 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They do get more into it, but yeah, this one they're like sprinkling a little bit. We know Hunter's important, obviously, from the ending, but yeah, isn't it kind of like Hereditary though? A little bit like Payman, King
Yes.
Payman, all that shit.
Yeah, there's that, and I mean, there's a lot of other movies that came out similar after Paranormal Activity 1, like The Exorcism of Emily Rose was another like kind of found footage, which I
No, no, no. You're thinking of The Last Exorcism.
The Last Exorcism reminds me of Paranormal Activity 3.
Kind of, yeah, with the cult at the end and everything. Yeah,
Yes, yes, exactly.
you're right. You're right. Yeah. Dude, like this movie, I think like upon first viewing is pretty good, but yeah, like by now,
Yeah, we're all like 35. We're like, yeah, this doesn't do it for me the same way. It just doesn't do it.
if you saw this for the first time at 35, though, having kids, wouldn't that maybe make it a little scarier?
That thought crossed my mind, and it's like, oh, I'm full on out of that house. Like, we're going somewhere else, period. Like, I don't know why they stay in the house. Like, that's always my thing.
It's so funny because Alec, to your point, the reason that this hit me so hard was that I'm scared shitless the entire time for this kid, and they show him every kind of big spook that's not just a noise in the background starts with Hunter crying, right?
Yeah.
And it's like fuck, and I don't know what's happening to him. You know, the fact that the shot where he's pulled up the crib is really impressive. I have no idea how they did it, and there are a couple of shots that are one that sticks out that like maybe isn't the best, but it made me laugh a little bit is when Christy at some point everyone has to leave the house for some reason and she gets pulled by this spirit like the first movie gets pulled down these stairs. She puts up a good fight and then she gets pulled into the basement and then you see the time fast forward an hour, right? And then she walks back up and obviously she's been possessed or something has happened to her and the next day, like, you know, something had happened to the dog that night. So that's the night that everyone left to go take care of the dog, Alec. They found the dog had been attacked and they said he had a seizure and whatever. So
That's right.
they weren't expecting Christy to be awake when they got home, but she had gotten possessed. And the next day, Allie goes to check on her stepmother or on her brother because her brother's crying. And, you know, first person shot, she opens the door and the mom's standing there. And then she hears a thud. So the camera, like, you know, pans to the left and comes back. And Christy's gone. The room is empty. And as she opens the door, you're waiting for the jump scare. And there's just this hunter's just hanging over the side of the crib, just smiling at the camera. And I was like, oh my God, like it was a very funny shot to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, the resolution with the exorcism and all that kind of stuff goes a little too quickly. Like I felt like they built up this whole the dad's going into the mother's room, Christy's on a bed, she's like catatonic, she's not responding, and he's about to touch her with a cross, and she jumps and like bites him, right? And that's when all the power in the house goes out. But like every time she attacks the husband, there's really no recourse to it. You know, he somehow fends her off. He doesn't get injured or anything. Because I'm like, okay, she obviously has the demon gives you strength. We see that in the very, very end with the other sister, Katie.
Hmm.
But like, he kind of fends off these things, and it's just like a transition from one room to another. What do you guys think of like the big rumble in the basement?
Well, I liked it because he has the cross and he has knowledge of how to fight this thing. So I think that's why he was able to beat it, because in the first one, Micah has like no idea what's going on. So it's able to just like kill him real easily. In this one, at least David getting attacked, he's like, all right, fuck, I believe it. Bring back Martine,
Martin.
bring her back. This is my gripe though. why does she know everything about exorcisms and stuff? Like she just seems like an average Catholic lady. And she's like, no, I know everything about getting rid of demons. You got to burn this, you got to use this cross. And here's the other thing. They're like, we also need to transfer her soul to another blood member. So they're going to sacrifice Katie, you know? So I was like, that's kind of fucked up. And also, how do you know this, Martine? I want to know more. Like, say, like my uncle was like a exorcist or something like that. Anything. But yeah, I actually liked the ending because that gave it some to me why he was able to beat the demon.
Just felt very convenient that they had this housemaid that like knew that. Yeah, like
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little convenient for sure, but I did like the ending and I like how it tied into the first one a lot.
Yeah, I like that rumble shot where the camera is prone on the ground and like you see after he presses the cross against, just like you were saying, Alec, he finally fights it, and the recourse is just the whole grounds are shaking and like the sun just walks into frame very like casually. And I was like, all right, like that's a weird ending, but pretty good. And then there, it's interesting. I don't know if you guys noticed, I had subtitles on because I was trying not to like I was watching it during work, but the ad that was on the TV when Allie first fell asleep. There's like an initial shadow that creeps over her. She wakes up. She's sleeping on this couch, and there's like a dark shadow, and the TV goes static, but there's like a Dunkin' Donuts commercial playing on the
Yeah.
background.
Yep.
And then, can I go to the ending, or is that
Yeah, yeah,
too?
go for it.
So in the ending, right, they find out they have to burn this picture of a blood relative in order to pass the demon. And you get this false sense of security because they burn it and it shows footage and all of a sudden, Christy's okay again. And then it starts the beginning of Paranormal Activity 1, right? So you're like, oh, if this is the start of that, it's going to resolve itself. And then it cuts to 2 days, I think, after the murder of the first movie. And you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Because it keeps showing shots and you're not seeing anybody in the shot. And you see that the husband's downstairs and Christy's upstairs with Hunter and she's trying to soothe him. And all of a sudden, it shows Katie in the background of like the shot. And the husband turns around and obviously she's not there. And it cuts again. It goes to the front. It keeps going through these four locations back and forth, back and forth. And then she's right behind the couch and she lifts him up and snaps his neck. And it's not just like a possession like Vader choke. Like he jumps out of the couch and she still manages to snap his neck. And I'm thinking, oh, she's gonna go upstairs. Like the sisters are gonna have like a joint possession or something. And she does exactly what she did to her husband in the first movie. She walks up and she murders her sister with the baby in her hands.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And the weird thing is, as she carries Hunter away, you can hear him start to giggle. So it's like, oh, that's really weird because I didn't know that he was kind of in on it or at least enjoying the process.
I mean, he's the demon. He's the baby demon guy. He's supposed to be the host, so yeah, he's in on it. I know there wasn't as big a jump scare in this one as there was in the second one. I mean, the first one. The first one's like it ends on a big jump scare. This one fades out a little bit.
Which there was an alternate ending which would have totally changed this movie if they went with that.
For this one,
The alternate ending is Katie just comes out of a trance and the cops show up and then see her husband dead and she's still holding a knife or something and the cops just
yeah.
shoot her up. So
Nah, this is better. This gives it a future.
for sure. And which is probably why they went with that original ending of leaving it open.
Yeah. And we do also learn right after that that Allie, the teenage daughter, was on like a school trip or something and came home and found her mother, her father and stepmother dead and the baby gone.
And it leaves with the title card, right? It's just like and Hunter and what Christie were never found.
Yeah, and then they come back in the fourth one because the third one's a prequel, fourth one's a sequel, and the fourth one is basically just like an Xbox Connect commercial. Like honestly, the whole movie is
Yep.
just like, wait, you can see this thing through the Xbox Connect? It's like, yes, only available on Xbox One. There's currently a sale at Target. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's pretty fucking crazy.
I'd never seen the fourth one. That's great.
But yeah, this one's pretty. I like this one. I mean, Dom, this being one of your first times, I mean, how do you feel?
Yeah, dude, it got me. Again, the movie was good because it dipped my intrigue in terms of the backstory, but like, I want to know what, I don't know if they ever resolve the whole like Katie's missing with Hunter or whatever. I'm also interested in their backstory as much as I am like, what happens now that they have the baby and whatever. So maybe that's the fourth, and you said there were seven movies.
Yep.
but I thought it did its job. It was short enough. And, it got me on some of the day scares. I thought the actors did well. I thought the kids were good. And, it gave me just enough of a sprinkle for me to be interested that it's more than just a demon. Like there's a whole backstory and like, obviously they're setting something grander up. But what do you think, Eric?
I mean, there was a time and a place for this movie, and it was like the late 2000s and the early 2010s. And this movie made its mark, and got to give it credit. The first one, $220,000 budget, made 200 million. This movie, $3 million budget, which is way more. And like you said, Alec, the first one feels almost better budget wise, even. I mean, there's no pool, but yeah, I mean, it's a better film overall, but this movie still made almost 200 million too, 177 million, which is it's just crazy. So give it credit, and it came and did its thing for sure.
Now, do you think you'd be friends with Micah, Eric?
No, I don't like Micah. I don't like
Okay.
Micah.
Yeah. No, okay. All right. Well, what do you say then? I mean, we've pretty much talked this movie to death. Yeah. I guess time to spin the
Spin that
wheel.
wheel.
Yeah.
All right, time to spin the wheel. Spinning. Finally, 28 days later. Long overdue, Alec.
All right. We do have a guest. It's another podcast that reached out, so I cannot remember who it is off the top of my head, but we'll get them.
I can't wait for this one.
I know. This is gonna be a fun one, but Dom, thank you so much for joining, man, and joining us on the series. And if you want to do the third one, I think the third one is way better. So let us know.
Dude, sign me up in advance because I am interested enough to look into it, but I hear they do go downhill at some point, so just give me a warning.
Oh yeah, fourth one's where it really starts to lose its shit. But yeah, well, everybody, thank you very much for listening into our discussion on Paranormal Activity 2, and we'll see you next week with 28 Days Later.